Okay, I'll get right on that. Bye-bye. Oh my gosh, I can't take another Zoom meeting. You kids need to be quiet. I'm on the computer with the president of the company. He's gonna fire me for sure. Oh, I need a break. Maybe I can find some seeds or pick out a new chicken breed. Anything to beat this monotony. I know what I'll do. I'll build a chicken coop. Yeah, nothing can go wrong there. I decided pretty quickly that I was going to build chicken coops during the pandemic. With all the time we had on our hands locked away at home, I decided to use some of the free scrap wood that I had been amassing from our local Lowe's. Back by the cutting tables, they would give away free wood, so I started collecting it. Sammy started helping me lay out the legs and the base for the first chicken coop, and we decided to have this raised table like you see on some of these coops. We started laying out the walls on the ground and screwing it together with zinc plated nails and screws that we got from our local Ace, but very quickly I put a screw through my thumb. So I had to keep it wrapped up in gauze and took a few days off, but after I was able to graduate to Band-Aids, I picked up where I left off pretty quickly. So the thumb wasn't in the way and bothering me anymore. We got back to putting the frames up. We got the base of the first chicken coop off the ground about 18 inches. We painted it with a stain resistant white paint, anti-mold paint, and then we started getting the walls together. Wendy helped me inspect them and line them up in the garage where we did most of our work in the colder part of the winter. And then we started putting it on the back porch, and this became our sort of staging area for the chicken coops as we built them. This was the first one when the first two walls went up. Then we put the third supporting wall and the slope of the roof, and you can see we have just enough clearance. And we eventually moved it over to where the wheelbarrow is here. Then we started framing it out a little more, and I didn't anticipate the fact that it would get very, very heavy. So as we added each new item, including the nesting box, it just started getting bulkier and heavier and heavier. Here it was still pretty manageable. And I would work on it at night. I still had to work during the day, had to get on the Zoom meetings and get work done remotely as we could, as much as was possible. And then I'd get out on the back porch and I'd work, before it got too late. And again, most of the wood that I used was scrap wood on this one. We didn't actually pay much. The kids loved to hang out in the chicken coops. They thought they were their own little mini playhouses, and they'd get in there and they'd read while I was working and just come out and check on me. You can see they're bundled up here, wearing their jammies and their rain boots, smiling. They just love these chicken coops. They thought they were like little bitty playhouses. And about that time, I got the bug. I decided I wanted to try some different designs. I was happy with what I was making, but I wanted to try some more things with some of the wood that I have. So I started framing up the next one. This one, I believe this one I called the Chicken Church. This was the start of the Chicken Church. You can see we built sort of this steepled looking thing. And this was the frame of that one. About the same time I started framing out a barn looking one. You can see the gable type roof there. So I'm building 3 chicken coops at a time right then, framing them out. And I was pretty good at framing them and getting the roof lines lined up. It was finishing them out that ended up being more difficult. Here you see the barn style one taking shape. You get the particle board flooring, and the roof. And you see these sort of square spaces too. There's square spaces here in the chicken church. And what I was doing was I was setting up to use some glass block, architectural glass block that I had been dragging around with us for a time. But we were watching the prices at Lowe's start to go up. You know, 18 bucks for a 5-ply sheet seemed very expensive back then. I think it's like 36 bucks now, but it seemed expensive. So, you know, we were going in fits and starts and working as we could with these pieces of wood that I had and a little bit of particle board that we ended up purchasing for them. You know, I had my tools out there. I put all my tools away every night, just like you're supposed to. Started getting the rafters lined up for the roof. You know, I enjoyed building this one, apart from the point that I felt eventually that it was too small if I were to build a larger sort of coop. But I was, you know, building these chicken coops, starting to put the glass blocks in. You see here I got these architectural glass blocks in as the window for light, and I started covering the roof, putting in the sheathing in the building. And they were just like little mini buildings. You know, I was framing these out just like I would any other building, but it just started to get crazy.
Hey, it's Jake in California. I wanted to give you guys some updates on my progress on the chicken coops. I've had a lot of time to work on these in the last few weekends, and I'm making some progress. But I'm about to put the sheathing on the last two main chicken coops. I got some other buildings I'm doing, but these are actual chicken coops and not just little playhouses or something. So let me go ahead and show you what I've done. Behind me you see a couple. I'll go ahead and give you the full tour here. So as you know, I've been working on this other coop here. It's kind of a hodgepodge. This was my first attempt, and it's a good coop. I just have to. It's not as pretty as the others. It's more decorative, or not decorative, functional. These over here, as you can see, look more like barns, or even this other one with the sort of steeple frame. That's a little further back in the process, but you can see this barn one's coming along well. So anyway, I'll give you guys some updates on that, as well as some other things in the yard. We got a lot going on right now, but we'll talk about a few of these other things soon. So thanks for watching.
As we continued on with the build, we found it getting slower and slower. You know, we're having a harder time getting affordable sheathing for the buildings. So I concentrated on filling in some of the structural elements with the wood that we have left. You can see I started building the nesting box for the chicken church. And you know, this is a pretty good design. You know, it's sort of modular. You get it done on the ground, and then you frame it out as much as you can with the parts sticking out that are going to fit into the coop itself, and then you'll be able to put it in and screw it down. I ended up using a lot of gatehouse hardware. You know, it's pretty cheap stuff from Lowe's, polished brass to make it look pretty good. And I just started framing on some of the little chicken doors and coop lids and hatches and all the hardware that goes on. Here's a picture of one of the glass blocks that I was starting to frame up. You had to do a separate frame in there so that it would actually fit without breaking. But I got them in pretty well. You see the windows on these two coops. One is a frosted glass, the other's clear. And you can see how those fit in with the developing roof. And I was also going to start doing framing, so I painted the coops as much as I could, and then started putting the white framing up. And you know, it started looking pretty good.
Blue dude, blue moon, kinda mysterious, shaded with someone I'm not really into. Do you need to fix it? talking bullshit. It's hard to see you when your eyes look dull. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Blue dew, bad mood. Sort of witty and jaded, but let's not talk about you. Your coyote song on a rerun. Are you hound dog tired singing all night long? Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Not blue dew, blue moon. Been one or two since I ran into you. Do you need a picture? Well, that gets old. It's hard to take one when your iPhone's full. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue? Not blue. Not blue.
You can imagine that building 4 chicken coops at the same time would start to get pretty tedious, especially if you're doing it in your spare time, you're not getting out of your house. So I started finishing out some of the things like the nesting boxes and trying to get some of the things that I was doing. But there came a point where I needed a break. So I got as much as I could do reasonably finished, getting the sheathing of the buildings on, maybe not getting all the hatches and things done, but I just said, I need a break. So about this time I started thinking about what else I could do with some of this wood, and the kids were still using them as playhouses. I figured it'd be a good time to let them enjoy that, take a break, and try to find another project to work on. This was the height of the pandemic now. You go into the stores and you'd find empty shelves. You wouldn't see any supplies, beans, rice, spices, bulk foods. This is at our local Winco. They removed all the bulk foods because those are the sort of things that people stick their hands in, and they were gone. So I started thinking about a chicken coop for ourselves. These other ones I had decided by then I was going to sell, and we were going to put the money into a bigger build. And the first thing I did was lay out a 4 by 6 foot flooring base to start putting legs on. So I did that. We got a good piece of plywood, put that on that, and then we started building the floor for what I envisioned to be our Amish style chicken coop. And it really was based on some coops that we had seen in Lancaster, Pennsylvania when we lived there. But I got this idea that we were gonna glue down everything, we were gonna seal everything, we were gonna paint it, we were gonna make this coop practically indestructible. And it all started with this base that I just glued the pie out of. You know, it was gonna survive the apocalypse. So that's how I started doing the floor base of our primary Amish style chicken coop. With the base taking good shape, I took some time to paint this thing. We got a barn style paint from Lowe's, and it had a sealant in it. You know, it's supposed to be like a stain seal paint, and I painted every nook and cranny on that with 3 different layers. And we dried it off, flipped it over, and I trimmed it all, and we just started going to town on the frame. And you know, again, I based this on some of the Amish style chicken coops that I'd seen. We got these brochures and pictures, and I poked around you know, when we were down there visiting relatives. And you know, this is just sort of a mold base, purple base paint. I think I got this really cheap because it was a mess up. And then I started framing up the walls, and I envisioned these 2 windows, and the windows were very interesting because I fit them out based on what I found on Amazon. And I started building the coop, and I got the walls in the dimensions that I wanted, and I went to order the windows, and I just couldn't get them anymore. They were there one day, and then they were gone the next because they were a cheap window, little shed type window that you could get on Amazon, and it just disappeared because they're all made in China. So we couldn't get the windows, but by then I had already framed them up in this process. This is the back wall that was going in with the vent. We put that up first. You can see the seed growing setup behind it, and I'm just starting to get this thing put up in my garage right next to the car where we're parking every night. And this is how this half of our garage started to fill up. We just started building this chicken coop right where the other car would park. You can see as it's fitting in there, bit by bit by bit, we got the frame up, and then it just really started taking off. And you know, I had this vision that I just started working on every evening for a couple of hours, and it just started developing in the garage, and it was taking on a life of its own. With the framing almost complete, I started putting on the siding. We were going to work on the roof next, but I really started getting this sort of shiplap siding going. Actually, board and batten, I should say, not shiplap. But the board and batten started coming up well. We used zinc framing nails. And you know, I really liked the color of this wood. For a long time I thought I was going to keep it in, but you'll see here in a little bit what we actually ended up doing with it. But finally, after almost a year, the windows came in. And it was just sort of a shocking thing out of nowhere. Suddenly we had these windows, and I said, well, heck, let's get this thing done. So I just started banging out the siding, getting it all in, getting it all trimmed up, bit by bit by bit. And I think this entire front I got done in half a day. You know, I had it all lined up, and once I got those windows in, and we got the hardware cloth over the window openings, I just started getting it done. We got the door on, we got the siding on, and then we got the hatch on, or the egg box. And it was very functional. I was very pleased with it, and I got in there and I started sealing all the nooks and crannies with just clear silicone sealant from Lowe's, and I was testing it up, trying to weather it in, getting everything done. The hinges I used ended up being from Harbor Freight. I ground off a third set of hinges so we could get those extra accent pieces, and the trim just looked great. And we got our barn star on there, and we started getting the roof, just the roof decking, just sort of a plywood particle board type roof decking. And I almost kept it this color, and I thought about it real hard. So in the meantime, I went to the roof, got the flashing on, ended up getting the shingles all lined up. We just used an asphalt type, you know, we used a tar paper, and then we used an asphalt type shingle that was available at Lowe's on sale. Anything that we purchased on this one ended up being on sale. You know, we try not to buy anything full price. And I got the shingles put on, and we started thinking about what we're going to paint it. We're gonna stain it. And I thought, oh, this wood looks so good, I'm just going to do sort of a clear coat stain and make it sort of a just rustic wood color. But as I started to put the framing on, I realized this thing could be out in the weather, and I wanted it to look good. So that was something on our minds, and we ended up using a nice gray stain. This is about 3/4 of the way finished, and it turned out pretty well. Then about 6 months went by. I had just burned out. We built this chicken coop in our garage, and I thought, you know, I don't want to do anything else. And about that time, we started cleaning up, thinking we might be moving, and my attention was taken back to the chicken church. It needed to be finished. It had sat in our back there collecting cobwebs, and it had the shingles on and the white trim and all the sheathing, but it wasn't finished. So I decided I was going to get the final door on the side, make sure that the egg coop box got done, and I spent some time finishing that. And then I wanted to get rid of this pile of wood in our backyard. It was about 500 pounds of extra wood, and it had become infested with black widows and spider webs and cockroaches, and it was just becoming an eyesore in our backyard, and I wanted to get it out of there. So I took the tarps off, I blew it out and dismantled it, and a friend of mine from work came over and thankfully took most of it to haul off to his farm. So we got that entire 16-foot long by 4 feet tall by 1.5 feet deep pile torn apart, loaded up, and hauled off. And then it was time to say goodbye to the original coop, which I had finally finished by then with all the trim. We loaded it up, put it on Craigslist, loaded it up on nice guy's trailer. He was going to take it off. He just moved to the area, wanted some chickens, and we sold it to him and sent it off to a new home. You know, this was the last we saw of this coop. It was all loaded up on a trailer and driving out of our neighborhood, ready to go to a very nice family. And it was a little bit sad, but I knew it was time to go, and I knew we had our chicken coop, so I didn't feel so badly. And as we saw it ride off into the sunset, we had ended our chicken coop adventure, at least for now. Thanks for watching this episode of the Roaming Homesteaders. We hope you enjoyed this little slideshow and that it inspired you to show you that you can homestead where you are, even when you're cooped up at home. If you like this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are released. And as always, we appreciate you watching. Bye-bye.